WOZ Up with Bill. Conversations on life, faith, and everything in between.
Welcome, everyone. Today we have a new podcast. Pastor Ben here, that's who's speaking, and I have Pastor Bill with me, and he wanted me to intro because we're going to be starting this, and Pastor Bill has felt the need, and I agree that we need some intergenerational voicing, I don't know, in our congregation. And so this is going to be intergenerational. It might feature some people from all across the age spectrum, and going to be hosted by our seniors pastor, Mr. Golden Hour himself, Bill Wozney. Bill, how are you doing?
Good, I'm doing, Ben. Thank you for saying seniors with the S, because I'm so glad that we have somebody who is the senior pastor, and I'm glad to be working with the seniors and with everybody. We have a wonderful team, Ben. We really are.
Yeah.
And as we go along, you're right. We will hope to touch on themes that may relate to the seniors, but what we're going to launch today, Ben, is, and the reason I'm so glad that you're able to be here, is we really felt we'll have to kick this off, this podcast, and we'll try to figure out a name for it that's appropriate.
Intergenerating. That's what I jokingly called it earlier.
You're right. That's right. Anyway, the thing that came to me is we're talking about, we want to kick this off by talking about the theme of the issue of loneliness, which is a factor that we're dealing with in today's culture, Ben.
Yeah, for sure. And when it comes to loneliness, I think this is particularly on your heart, and like hopefully helping people to not be lonely, because you and Cindy are gotta be the most welcoming people I know, because you guys have modeled hospitality and care for people and inviting people in your home. And I know we're going to get to that conversation part about it later, but loneliness, I think that's maybe extra why it's on your heart. Is that fair to say?
And Ben, I really appreciate you being here, because I know your role now has elevated. You now serve as the associate pastor at Faith City Church, but in your beginnings, you worked with young adults. So yep. I really wanted you to be here because I was really interested and probably somewhat surprised. I did a little bit of research, not tons, but a little bit, but just researching some articles. One article comes from the Los Angeles Therapist.com. And in that, it's from a 2020 study. It really took me back. I know that I've read and I've seen articles that indicate there's a concern that loneliness is an issue among our university students. And as a seniors pastor, I'm in my 70s, and I just know I'm conversant with the phone and technology. I'm not at the PhD level. I can at least function in it. And if I can't, I have 6 grandchildren. So I just call them and they come over and they help Grandpa, and I'm back on the road again. But it's really interesting how that in this article, it says that 79% of the Gen Z, that's 13 to 28, and 71% of millennials, 29 to 44, considered themselves lonely, and only 50% of the baby boomers, whom I am, felt the same way. And so I was just really, Ben, I was taken aback by that. Like, I assumed that it would be flip that, right?
Yeah. So,
I mean, what's your experience with that? Would that reflect reality?
Yeah, it's funny. My thought would be that younger people would be more lonely. But I think it's because for me, I know of a lot of younger people that are lonely. And a lot of the people who would be in the boomer generation have pretty established relationships, and normally you're more rooted somewhere, so you know people in an area even if you don't see them very frequently. But also I do think when you talked about your PhD on the phone, or working on your phone PhD, there's some younger people who have like 5 postdocs and they've been, even like if you're a little younger than me, I didn't get a cell phone until I was in university.
Okay.
I was in my third or fourth year of third year of university when I first got a phone. Yeah. And so I know what life is like without it. I know what life is like without the internet. I know dial-up and like all of that stuff, not just on demand.
Careful now, man. You're dating yourself.
But when I think about younger people being lonely, is not the same playing a video game or chatting with someone across the internet or being on your phone. And I know a lot of people, younger and older actually, so that I think this spans, they'll spend time with people, but they'll be on their phone either working or doing other stuff for a dominant portion of the time, and then it's not engaging and doing face to face. It's like face with a couple screens in the middle. So I think that probably contributes to a big chunk of it.
Well, it's really interesting because, the article that your comment, the article that I read, it basically said it supports the theory that technology, social media, and remote work really drive these figures.
Yeah.
So we live in a different world now, that kind of thing. But the perception is, because we have all of this technology and ways to connect, that you would feel you'd be more connected. And in fact, it seems to be, I want to be careful when I say that, because, most people would expect old people to be old and curmudgeonly, and I'm not against it. It's an effective tool. But it's obviously not doing what it's effective in communication, but it may not be as effective in building a sense of connection and community.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think it's like you said, it can be a tool to check in and keep up with people. But do you think there might be even something, when you said that, it made me think of, there's something to you don't feel the need to meet up with someone and check in when you saw everything that happened on their vacation or everything that happened in their life, or everything that's going on because you've been following them in 3 different areas.
Yeah, well, and that's completely possible. But it's obviously not producing the sense of connection rate.
No.
And maybe that's the misrepresentation, if I can use that term, because I'm not against social media. I'm not against this technology.
Yeah.
But it can be perceived or can be misrepresented to produce something that it can't produce. And that's that sort of face-to-face, eyeball-to-eyeball.
Yeah.
Stuff,
Making toast in your apartment. I've heard you reference that before, right? Having people over.
Yeah.
It's you want to do community? Oh, you want to host someone? It's if you have an apartment and a toaster and a loaf of Wonder Bread.
Yeah,
I'd recommend Wonder Bread, but some people like it.
Yeah, you're right. I'm talking about putting together a very economical hospitality kits in a bag. Going to Mission Mart and getting a toaster for $6.97, put a loaf of bread in there and a jar of peanut butter, and that's a hospitality kit.
Yeah.
And you know what the funny part is? We have friends who will do that sometimes. I'll drop by, and that's what we do. We put out the toaster and have some toasted peanut butter. And the issue is, while the toast and the peanut butter is good, we all have always come to this conclusion that really the good part about it is being together.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the point.
Yes.
About being together. And loneliness, I was talking to you guys before this, is not a new issue. I was mentioning that because I remember this, you guys may not have been alive. I can't believe it's over 50 years ago. Paul McCartney in 1966, they released a song on the album Revolver, and the name of the song was Eleanor Rigby.
Yeah, that's a year from being 60 years ago.
That's right. And so, but it's interesting because there's a line in that song in 66, 19, so loneliness is not a new issue. There's a line in that song that's always struck me. They're saying, all the lonely people, where do they come from?
Yeah.
And that's in 19.
And where do they belong, too, is the next line, I think.
Where they belong,
Yeah.
And so, interesting, I followed that up with, in 2021, in October, the New Yorker magazine did an interview with Paul McCartney, and I learned something very interesting. In that interview in 2021 with the New Yorker, I'm just ad-libbing here, but I know that's where the article comes from. Paul McCartney talked about the fact that song, Eleanor Rigby, came as a result of him befriending, when he was a young guy, a senior lady that lived close by to him growing up.
Oh,
so
really?
He got to know her, and then he would be very kind, do a small favor for her, and it would be go on to do another favor for her, and then he would do a little grocery shopping for her. She would invite him in, and he said, so she would invite me in, and we would sit down, we would have a cup of tea, and we would talk. She would tell me stories. He said it became a precious and a valued relationship. And he said that was really the core of Eleanor Rigby. And so, but we want to move on quickly here. We want to get to the conclusion here. We want to go forever.
Yeah. No, you're doing great.
Loneliness, or I know that you, Ben, you have encouraged us at Faith to practice solitude. There's a difference between solitude and lonely. You want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah, so solitude is obviously being alone, but being physically alone, and specifically for us, spending time with God and reflecting, and it's actually a time to charge up and connect and to listen. And is there times where you go and do solitude and you feel kind of lonely? Probably. I think we probably see that in the Psalms. But I also think that solitude isn't about being lonely. It's about spending time with God and connecting with him and feeling refreshed and knowing you're always with him, and like knowing God's with you is already like a loneliness deterrent to an extent. And I'm not saying like, oh, if you know Jesus rightly, you're always gonna feel like you're never lonely, but it also is like a way of recharging our souls so that we can actually pour into people more fully.
So thank you, Ben, because that's a good thing. It produces a good thing.
Yes.
Loneliness is a very negative thing. Do you understand?
Yes.
And so and solitude is something you do for a while. But as someone wrote here, he just said that loneliness it arises when you feel disconnected or lack meaningful connections to others. So the point of the matter, we move on quickly here. At Faith, we're trying to deal with that. One of our values is community, discipleship, walking together, walking our life faith journey together purposefully. So loneliness is an intergenerational challenge, and I believe that the solution is intergenerational. You talked about us being a welcoming place, and it's what we grew up with. But in our own personal family now, we were 4 generations until last December when my mom went home to be with the Lord. But whenever my parents visited, we would often sit around our dining room table, and there'd be 4 generations. I thought about that.
Yeah.
And you know what? There was room for everybody at the table. From the baby to the oldest person, there was a room for everybody. But I got thinking about that, and there are 2 observations. First of all, is somebody needs to prepare the table, the meal, and needs to invite the family. In Psalm 23, verse 5, it says, "You prepare a table before me." So the gospel and the church needs to be an inviting place. So you make room for everybody. The second part of that is that I know that people have to be willing to accept the invitation and come. People that were forced to come. My point is there's an initiative, right? I mean, you have to show some initiative. I don't want to be difficult here, but if you're lonely and you refuse to do something about it, you need to reach out to somebody. You need to connect with somebody. And in the discipleship walk too, Ben, is what I know is that there's a thing we talked earlier. We all know about going to a grandparents' place for dinner. Well, most of us, our grandparents are gone. Now we're at the age where we can prepare a table. They made space for us. Now as we grow in discipleship, we can make space for others.
Yeah.
So you're either setting the table or you need to be at the table. But both are a choice, aren't they?
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's probably times when, like, I don't know about you, Bill, but there's been times for myself where I felt extra lonely, and people checking in on me, or like, now I know you said I needed to take initiative, but like I was lonely and didn't really realize it, so didn't want to do anything. But then I had good friends that were lovingly forceful in their like, hey, we're doing this tonight. Yeah. Like they gave me a choice, but like barely. And I think there's lots of times where there might be someone who you haven't seen or I haven't seen in a while, and just checking in with them sometimes, because we don't know where everyone's at in any given moment. So if people are on our hearts sometimes, maybe there's a reason, and always being intentional, at least with some people. We can't invite every single person over that we've ever met, but we can invite someone over that we've met. Ben,
that's awesome, because the idea of the small group, we have a senior small group, right?
Yeah.
So you can't be that way with 800 people.
Yeah.
There's a time to get together with them in that.
Yep.
But that's the value. See, sometimes I listen to people that think like at Faith City, we're trying to sell a program when we encourage people to be involved in small groups. It couldn't be farther from the truth. It's part of the dynamic of, it's that connection where you have a friend who will call you saying, hey, Ben, like, what's up?
Yeah.
No, we're going for coffee, or, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And when it's
or
over,
going bowling.
You're thankful for it.
Yeah.
And pray God we can have that kind of connection and friendship.
Yep.
Or we can cultivate that. And we all can do that.
Yes.
We can all reach out to 1 or 2 people. That's the point.
Yeah.
And as I said, at Faith City Church, we're trying to do things maybe imperfectly, but the whole point is to try to provide a place where people can feel connected. And here's the point. I know just shortly time ago, I should say, Pastor Paul talking about being big but growing small.
Yeah. And
the fact of the matter is, I think that's really, really valuable. It's not that there's a lack of vision, but when you're small, everybody feels connected. And so, that's my heart. Whether you're in your 70s or in your 30s or in your 20s, you have some connections, and we can help you to build that. Do you know what I mean? And, if somebody's listening to this and they're concerned, and they're feeling this, I would just encourage you to look for ways, and you said it, to show some initiative, like connect with somebody, reach out to somebody, and build that. But that's the part of it, right? Is that, you can complain about being lonely and nobody cares. My question is, I grew up in a farm in Saskatchewan. You reap what you sow.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? If you need wheat, you plant wheat. So if you sow kindness, I've found out that it always comes back to you.
Yeah.
And consideration. And you're right, Ben. You can't do it for somebody or everybody, but you can do it for somebody.
Right. Yeah.
So Ben, listen.
Beautiful.
I don't know how this is going to go. We're off and running with the podcast, but thanks for being willing to come and hang out with an old guy. We might have to get you back here again another time.
Yeah, that'd be great. And whether you're looking for people that are lonely and you want to be able to reach out with them, let us know. Office of faithhalifax.org. Or if you're feeling lonely and something in this struck a chord with you, reach out to us and Bill will give you a call.
Yeah, by all means,
I'll give you a call.
That's right.
We'll get you connected with the
respond.
group and
for sure.
And maybe make you a toaster package that you can start hosting a person or two at your home.
Thank you so much, Ben.
Yeah, for sure. Have a good one, everyone.